Well, they're getting things kicked off here. Of course, looking at this last weekend, another band of winter weather with some cold and some snow, reaching quite a few areas here in the Corn Belt area. Still going to welcome it, making sure that we get precipitation throughout the winter. And even with some upcoming weather, it looks like some of this might even get melted. So, broader picture, what can we expect here moving forward as we, get closer to the Christmas day?
Yeah, you said something key there with respect to melting the snow. And despite what we may want, which is to maybe keep things a little wider around here through Christmas, I think the melting of the snow is better for agriculture. So this is the most latest snowfall that we got over the weekend. It's very targeted, very narrow band. But if you're in that band, like I am, we have 8 inches of snow on the ground outside here in Champaign, at least where I am. And the snow is heavy through parts of Indiana, Ohio, getting over toward headwaters of the Ohio River near West Virginia and parts of Ohio and Pennsylvania. And so what the point here to make though, Dawson, is an important one. If you just look at the snow pack this year up to this point, it's way different from a year ago. Last year, did we have this much snow in the Midwest? No, most of it was in the Western United States. And right now, our snowfall departure map shows there's a huge chunk of the Midwest here that's 6, 10. In fact, there's one spot in Iowa right there that's already got 23 more inches than normal in terms of snow. And you can also see the big lake effect here. Where we're missing it is out west. A year ago, now this was last year, by the time we finished the season, there was huge snows in parts of Oregon and Idaho and Northern California. Even parts of the Colorado River Basin were doing okay, and the snow hole was right in through here where we were missing out on so much of it. Now you brought up the point, and I want to hammer this point home. Take a look at this animation. This is snowpack right now early this morning. And what this is going to show you is the European model's forecast of what that snowpack looks like over the next 15 days. And as I play it forward, you're just going to see kind of one big theme. You start to see a lot of the snow melting. There's plenty of warm air coming later this week. There's another round of it leading up to Christmas. In fact, on Christmas, that's Christmas evening. So do you see, we've taken the snow line and shoved it pretty far to the north here, kind of removing a lot of that snow, which means we're going to get a lot of melt out of this. Now, the good news is when that snow came in, it wasn't, the soils weren't completely frozen over, which means we might be able to use some of this. So keep that in the back of your mind. The second thing to watch is the Western United States. Over the last 10 days, historic flooding has hit the Pacific Northwest while California's been left out of the flow. What we're starting to notice is, take a look at this. This is just an animation. Watch it again as I go forward here of the moisture coming off the Pacific targeting the Western United States over the next 10 to 15 days. That's something we've not seen for a while. In fact, most of the Western United States has been relatively dry, but now we're starting to see better moisture getting into California. And I bring that up because one of the dry spots in the country has been here. And in the forecast, as we start to see better moisture coming into California, you have to just ask, are we going to be able to at some point bring some of these systems through? Now, in the next 7 days, the answer is no, except for one system that's coming out later on this week. It's actually going to be born in Montana, but go through parts of the eastern Corn Belt toward the northeast. I bring this up and stress it because look how the month is shaped up so far. Very, very dry conditions, unless you're in parts of Montana or the Northern Plains or pockets of the Midwest. And even the moisture that you see right in through here, this was really just from one system that brought in some decent rains. The reality is our ranks are showing extremely dry conditions coming out of the Southern Plains to the Delta, Mid-South. We're very dry in California. We've only seen the good moisture in through this area, right? So that's your setup. That answers that first question you gave me. And it really just boils down to this. That's our current soil moisture map. So Dawson, back to the theme of where can we get moisture out of the snow? It's got to melt in this area. What'll be interesting is to see how much of that water gets into the Mississippi, because right now, this morning, the Mississippi is nearly 8 feet below low stage at Memphis. So we've got to get some moisture moving into that area. So what does it look like? Well, that snowmelt might be the only major source of moisture coming down the Mississippi going forward, because for the next 2 weeks, we're relatively dry in this area, save one storm system that's coming through this Thursday. But look at the West. We're just going to hammer the West with moisture going forward, which is critical for reservoir storage, snow storage, all of those kind of things which they need. But the big picture is there's a big blocking high over Scandinavia, one huge ridge moving into the central United States. So if you're sick of the temperatures, that's not going to last long. And another large ridge that's in the Bering Sea. So put all that together, this is what the temperatures do. There's the next 5 days. Watch day 5 through 10. Huge warm up in the central part of the United States. All the cold air, day 10 through 15, gets locked into Canada. And that's how things kind of shape up around Christmas. And that's pretty interesting given where we've been. Now there's a wild card, Dawson. The polar vortex is still off kilter. It's not like it's back strong and sitting over the North Pole, but some of the forecast models are trying to let it regain that strength as we go into January. So what I'm trying to paint here is, it took us about 20 days to get into this cold air we're in now, maybe 2022, 23. We may be looking at a 22, 23, 24-day pattern of more mild conditions if all of these things start to lean in the other direction. Now, I kept mentioning that one storm system for the Midwest, so I do want to show it to you. Look at the flow coming into the west. There it is. But by Wednesday night, right here, watch Montana. There it is. System comes out, pulls on some moisture out of the Gulf. That green means rain. It's going to be mild, but on the back side of it, a shot at cold air and some strong winds are going to be coming through. Meanwhile, the whole of the West just continues to be targeted. How much snow are we talking about? This could be huge for the West if this comes in, giving them much needed snow in the mountains, but it's got to really hit for the next 15 days for that to occur. And they are expecting very wet conditions, but look at the hole that's right in through here. That's a concern as we go forward. So big picture, snow over the next 10 to 15 days, mainly going to be confined way up farther to the north. We're not seeing a whole lot of additional snow in through that region. And the concern, I've just now said it 6 or 7 times, Dawson. Look at this. Look at how dry the next 10 days are in the middle part of the country. That's the probability of staying under a half inch. So let's finish up this near term because I've got a lot on my mind right now and just tell you this. By Christmas, that is the large ridge keeping all the warm air in place. But this trough is what's targeting systems into the west. So you're going to see the west has major risk of heavy precipitation. The west has major risk of huge snowfall. The west has the risk of the stronger winds coming over the mountains too. And it looks something like this as you look at the precip. Wetter, wetter, all of the models wetter. Oh, and really windy. Montana into the plains, wind gusts 50, 60, 70 miles an hour are definitely possible out of this. Okay, before I turn it back over to you, Dawson, one more thing. This pattern will flip. That's how cold it's been since Thanksgiving. We've got some places near having a top 10 coldest such stretch of days. But watch, you ready? Here's today's highs. That's tomorrow. Getting into Wednesday, 60s lining the plains up in South Dakota. This is Thursday. Remember, I told you the little system goes through a little cold shot behind it. So Friday brings in the colder weather there, but watch the plains rebound again on downslope winds. And we're looking at Saturday temperatures. I mean, the only place it's cold is up here. And that just seems to be where it wants to be. Look at all the maps. Just mild, mild, mild out there as far as we can tell. Okay, Dawson, that is me rambling for about 8 minutes on just the chaos in the current pattern. Question is, where do we take it from there?
Yeah. And I mean, before that too, I guess it seems like we're not going to be getting that white Christmas, but I mean, I guess it'll help for a lot of the, not having traveling headaches or having to worry about livestock through a lot of that time period as well. But you said you have a lot on your mind about that long range forecast. Kind of what are you thinking there? It seems like we've been kicking La Nina to the curb here a little bit. So what
Yeah.
factors are you kind of looking at to give you an idea of what could be coming down the pipeline?
Okay, so you're right. I want to make one statement though. I was talking to some livestock guys last week, telling about the warm up. Now these guys are they were in South Dakota, and I said they're like, yeah, but you gotta understand when you melt all that snow and you warm things up, it just is
You
muck.
get money.
Yeah, they're gonna spend some money on some bedding, but
Yeah.
Dawson, you said about La Nina, and there it is. And La Nina's been trying to get to its peak and start to fade. But last week, we saw a little bit of a resurgence of trade winds in through here. Now, what's the point in telling you that? Let me just show you this map and kind of do a little drawing. If we have true La Nina winter, you can just put a line right down the middle of the country, and we're drier. We tend to be a lot warmer farther to the south. We tend to be snowier and colder to the north. That is kind of the main idea behind what a La Nina does. Okay. But I think this La Nina is fading hard, and we expect, I mean, just last week we talked about there's a 50% chance that by June we're already back into El Nino. 50% of the ensemble members are back there. But I wanted to draw that for you here because if you look at the new forecast from the Climate Prediction Center, this is what they've got out there to finish December and start January. So you see how they're splitting the country? See that? I mean, it's just wetter north, drier south. And there's reason to believe that La Nina may have a control on this. I'm going to ask one thing about this pattern. I think if I had to modify it, I would put more of the west into the wetter category, and I would expand more of this into the drier. And here's my reason why. Now, this is a little complicated. But if you look from today all the way through January 15th, you see this blue that I'm drawing the line through? That is where the forecast models are putting in a trough of low pressure off the West Coast. Now, long story short, that means there's a ridge in the central US. So we're wetter more in the west, we're drier in through there. And this is the new European model forecast, which goes from December 21 to January 21. And I think that may be the case. The big wild card is, are we going to stay cold here and warm there, or are there going to be more of these intrusions of colder air coming across the country once we get into the new year? I don't know. All I can tell you is the temperature pattern has already been volatile. Why would I expect it to be any different going forward?
Yeah, something interesting there. I mean, and you took a lot of the analogs too last week, I
Yeah.
believe that you're just I mean, we're still anticipating some sort of, active weather for those northern areas,
Yeah.
essentially. That there's still the chances of that occurring. But yeah, it's kicking the dryness to the curb on the southern side of things too for a lot of the US that what NOAA is still expecting drought expansion for a lot of those areas, especially in
Yeah.
Texas and other parts of the plains.
It is. And right now, don't forget, we've got about 66% of the country in some form of drought based on the new drought monitor. I'm worried about the South, the Delta, and the Southeast going through winter only because that's a La Nina thing to worry about. Even though I tell you, the La Nina is weak, it's changing. The reality is they didn't have a hurricane season. So the moisture was lacking. And then we got into the fall and it's very, very dry. But a lot can happen between now and April. I mean, and so I was just chatting with someone this morning about this. I like to call winter the accounting months. You're just keeping tabs, keeping tabs. Where are we? Where? Then when you get into April, May, and June, and then the growing season, it's the short-term projections are increasing stress, decreasing stress, increasing stress, decreasing stress. And so right now it's just hey, let's wait and see how we battle through this. And but I'll tell you one thing, with the major blow up in temperatures coming through, it should affect the energy markets, right? I mean, that should be something else to consider as we go through winter. But yeah, just another thought there.
Yeah, it's kind of been dull a little on over on those sides for now, but yeah, I don't know if the weather will kind of impact your things here moving forward. Moving down to South America, though,
Yeah.
something is becoming more common with, I think a lot of the sentiment when it comes to South America is that, and you've explained this, and a lot of people are expressing this sentiment, there's just not a bullish story going on down there.
Yeah.
What do you have for the latest? It seems like, again, rain keeps making it to places that it needs to get to.
Yeah, and if you want me to invent a bullish story, I will. So let's do that, okay? So it's not here. I mean, the last week or so of rainfall hit some of the key dry regions. So we have southern Brazil, central Brazil, northern Argentina. And the forecast over the next 10 days is, I mean, it's only a bit drier into pockets of Argentina and then a few sections of eastern Brazil. But don't forget, this area just got rain. So who cares that they're a little drier? If you want me to invent a story, Dawson, it's going to be right here. This is the new outlook from December 18 to January 18. I'm just looking out there at that 1 month time horizon. We expect major increases in harvest, especially in the northern and center west regions. Now, historically, things that have gotten in the way of harvest is not drought. It's always too much rainfall. So if you want to invent a story about the weather with respect to Brazil's markets, I think if this wetter weather pushes a little farther to the north, then we could be talking about delays in harvesting because the crop stays too green, doesn't get a chance to kind of do any sort of drying down, and an extra 3, 4, 5 inches of rain a month could be critical to the success of getting the crop out. Now, I say all of that, and the reason why I say invent the story is because it rains like mad in Brazil anyway, right? So they're used to heavy rains in these key areas I'm talking about. So my story here is there is nothing currently in the forecast that makes me say better look out, Brazil. There's an issue coming on here. And unfortunately, it looks more on the favorable side of things than the bad. But I would say watch for too wet of conditions going into the end of this year, start of the new year.
Yeah, definitely seen a lot of good conditions going on down there. And I mean, Argentina's been lauding this last growing season that a lot of supplies are coming out of the southern hemisphere right now. So I guess that could continue to be the case until something changes down the road.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it if it does, but right now, I wouldn't put any hope in it. I think we're gonna have to be patient and just see what happens out of South America.
Yep, and we'll be continue to talk about that and with what's going on in the U.S. So for this week, always appreciate your insights, Eric, and we'll talk next time.
Yeah, sounds good. See you, Dawson.